Behind the door was a long, narrow path sloping steeply downwards. Shirley Yang threw a flare down, and it rolled for a long time before reaching the end of the path. By the time the flare stopped, its light was so dim that it was no longer visible. I took a deep breath. If this was indeed the path to the tomb, it was unexpectedly long. There were no corpses around, so if this sloping path had traps, those who had passed through must have left some traces. Nevertheless, we dared not be careless. One wrong step could easily lead to utter destruction. As I walked, I carefully observed the surroundings. Something seemed unusual, but I couldn't pinpoint what it was. Shirley Yang said, "Do you notice? There isn't a single rat here." I nodded, replying, "Indeed, I also feel something isn't right. Now that you mention it, I realize the trapdoor is halfway open, and there's a stone bridge connecting it. The underground palace usually swarms with rats, so why isn't there a single one here? ... Not only are there no rats, but on the ground there are no rat droppings or even rat fur. Could it be that the rats have an animal instinct and sense that this is a dangerous, forbidden area?" Shirley Yang didn't answer. She took a few more steps down, then suddenly turned around and asked me, "Can you tell me honestly, have you ever robbed tombs?" I was completely unprepared for her to ask such a question at this moment. For a moment I was flustered, unsure how to answer. Everyone else on this expedition was an archaeologist. While archaeology and tomb raiding, from a certain perspective, don't seem vastly different, they are fundamentally distinct, even diametrically opposed. My past was a closely guarded secret, so how could she have known? Seeing my silence, Shirley Yang said, "I was just guessing." It suddenly occurred to me, so I asked, "I noticed you understand many lost geomancy secrets and are very familiar with all sorts of ancient tombs, seemingly knowing them better than your own backyard. It really does sound a bit like tomb raiding." I cursed silently in my mind, "Damn woman, so it was just a wild guess. You nearly gave me a heart attack." I tried to remain calm and replied to Shirley Yang, "This is a family skill of mine. Before liberation, my grandfather was a renowned geomancer in every village, specializing in locating auspicious burial sites for people. My father was a soldier his whole life and never learned these things, and I just have an amateur interest. You don't know what kind of person I am. I just love deep research. I have a lei feng spirit. In short, it's all about deep exploration." The more I spoke, the more I drifted off topic, avoiding any further mention of geomancy or tomb raiding with Shirley Yang. We walked for a very long time and finally reached the end of the sloping path. There was no way to go further from here. The space all around was unusually vast, yet there was no path. Below the slope was a flat area on which hundreds of large-eyed stone statues were placed. Along this flat area were sheer, towering rock faces. Looking up, we couldn't see the ceiling of the cave, only an unfathomable blackness. Ahead was another colossal pit, impossibly vast. The focused beam of the flashlight, which could only illuminate 20 meters, couldn't reach its bottom. Had we reached a dead end? But upon closer inspection, this place didn't resemble the cave in the secret passage's mural. Shirley Yang said, "Perhaps the queen's coffin is still down there." After burying her, the Jingju people might have destroyed the path leading down, so no one could disturb their queen's sleep. I smiled and said, "That's good, let's go back." Before I could finish my sentence, Shirley Yang pulled out 3 flares and threw them one by one into the pit, estimating its depth. Both of us lay prostrate at the edge of the pit, peering down. We saw the flares only fell a short distance, revealing that the gap between our position and the bottom of the pit wasn't large, only about 30 meters. Thanks to the flare's light, we saw a rather wide flat area below, with countless gold and silver artifacts, ceramics and precious pearls and gems piled up like mountains. I exclaimed in astonishment, "Damn, so all the good stuff is here. It seems the queen's coffin is definitely down there. It's just that there's no way down." Just then, Shirley Yang found a set of rope ladders at the far end of the flat area. The rope ladder was tied to a large rock protruding from the edge of the pit, with old-fashioned safety clasps at both ends. Shirley Yang said, "Perhaps previous explorers left it. Although the rope ladder seems sturdy, it's been many years." We should go back to the stone bridge and get our own rope ladder to be safe. I said, doing that is simple of course, but have you considered why there's so much gold, silver and jewels down there, yet the explorers who came before us didn't take any? Foreigners aren't necessarily good people. To put it nicely, they're explorers. To put it harshly, they're bandits who came to steal from our China. You should know that thieves never return empty-handed. Shirley Yang replied, I understand what you mean. You're suggesting that they entered a mountain of gold and wouldn't leave empty-handed, so the reason those treasures are still untouched is because there are traps down there, like hidden mechanisms or fierce beasts, right? I replied, exactly, that's what I mean. Cakes don't just fall from the sky, such good things don't just happen. The simpler things seem, the more complicated they often are in practice. Do you remember old Anlaman once saying, there's an ancient curse in the Black Desert? No matter who takes treasures from the Black Desert, that person will be forever buried in the desert along with those treasures. Shirley Yang replied, this legend is also recorded in the records of the western regions by the Great Tang. The city buried in the Black Desert is called Kara Kara. I don't think there's anything wrong with this curse. Professor Chen and his students are archaeologists. They won't casually touch these items. My biggest worry is your fatty friend. You need to keep an eye on him. I said angrily, what are you implying? Are you saying we look like thieves? Let me tell you, we may be poor, but our aspirations are not short-sighted. I can stake my head on it. If I say don't touch anything here, my brothers absolutely won't take anything. You should watch yourself first. Remember the year of Zhengzi, when the Eight-Nation Alliance came to China, killing, setting fires, and stealing so many good things from us. Among those 8 nations was your country, America, wasn't it? What right do you have to think we're like thieves? Shirley Yang's face turned pale. Are you implying that I'm like a thief? I reconsidered. Shirley Yang had, after all, once saved my life. My words just now were indeed a bit heated. So I grudgingly apologized, and the two of us returned along the old path. This time, neither of us said a word to the other. The atmosphere was incredibly heavy. Professor Chen and everyone else had been waiting impatiently for us. When they finally saw Shirley Yang and me emerge, they eagerly asked for details. I scooped a bottle of water from the river, and drinking it, recounted the situation inside the cave. Shirley Yang also added a part. Professor Chen and his students heard that there was another cave within the cave. Fatty Quan, hearing about the piles of funerary objects below, was overjoyed and couldn't wait any longer, immediately moving inside. I was the last to go. Before entering, I checked the trapdoor again. Damn, if it fell, no one would ever get out of here. But with this much dynamite, there was no need to worry. Thinking that, I felt somewhat relieved and lowered my head, stepping into the tunnel. At the flat ground, everyone was busily preparing the rope ladders. I guessed that at this point, advising them would be useless. So I just warned Fatty Quan strictly not to take anything from below. That damn curse, whatever it was, I didn't believe in it, but I couldn't let Shirley Yang get a hold of anything against us. We couldn't let Chinese people lose face. Fatty Quan replied, don't worry. We brothers, good or bad, are still men, we can't lose face. This time, no matter what there is, I won't even touch a single rat's fur. He thought for a moment and then added, if I take anything, I'll come back for it next time. After lowering the rope ladder, I was still the vanguard, leading the group down first. I saw no sign of rats anywhere around, and initially thought that perhaps the strange black snakes were down here, so the rats didn't dare descend. But after getting down, I discovered the place was deathly silent. Let alone snakes or rats, there wasn't even an ant or a bug. On the nearby rock face, many bronze lamp holders were fixed, cast in the shape of kneeling slaves holding cups. The lamp oil in the cups had long since burned out. The bronze lamps were fixed densely, too numerous to count. Randomly taking one to the market, with this technology, origin, age, and history, it would undoubtedly be very valuable. Standing on the piled-up treasures, I couldn't help but feel an itch in my heart. To refrain from touching them without a shred of willpower would be disastrous. The only way was to stop looking at them and try to distract myself. I blew my whistle loudly, and those waiting for the signal above began to descend one by one. Each person who descended was utterly astonished by the mountain of jade, ivory, and jewels. All these rare and exotic treasures had been plundered by the Jingzhu people from the western regions in ancient times. Even Professor Chen couldn't name every single item, but one thing was certain. Every piece of wealth here was worth an entire city. Fatty Quan stared wide-eyed, completely forgetting his promise to me just now, and reached out to grab the nearest jade wine flask. I quickly held his hand and whispered, "Damn it, is your promise worth less than a fart? I told you not to touch anything here, didn't I?" Fatty Quan was dazed for a moment before coming to his senses. Holy cow, that's weird. Just now, my hand wouldn't listen to me anymore. My head said not to touch it, but I couldn't control my hand. I said, "Don't make excuses, you're just dazzled by money. What are you still standing here for? Let's move on." After speaking, I turned to look at Shirley Yang. She and Su Qin were busy helping Professor Chen down the rope ladder, not paying attention to Fatty Quan's actions. I asked Su Qin, "Why are you down here, kid? Weren't you supposed to stay up there and watch Yet's Tam?" Su Qin replied, "Big brother, I just wanted to see what the tomb was like. I'll take a quick look and then go right back." It wasn't just him. Everyone present was eager to see the Queen Jingzhu's coffin. The legend sounded terrifying, and it might be dangerous, but having come this far, no one could suppress their curiosity, especially these archaeologists. Professor Chen, having just descended the ladder, was panting heavily as he said to me, "Let them see. This is a rare learning opportunity, good for expanding their knowledge. No matter how formidable that Queen Jingzhu was, she's been dead for 2,000 years. Her kingdom was destroyed by slaves after her death, so there's probably nothing to worry about. Everyone just needs to remember one principle of archaeology. Absolutely do not damage any items in this place." I thought he had a point. After all, the queen was dead. No matter how ghostly her magic, she couldn't perform it now. Those who suffered in ancient tombs before were likely enchanted by these piles of jade, ivory, and jewels, forever unable to escape. It seemed these funerary objects were the biggest trap. The only way to control one's greed was to try not to look at them anymore. Queen Jingzhu created many legends throughout her life, wielding power across the western regions, yet ultimately could not escape death. Only then does one realize that worldly affairs are like a game of chess, constantly changing. Prosperity and decline have always been predestined by heaven. No matter how great her abilities, she could hardly escape the laws of nature. At this moment, with Taptabang's help, Yet's Tam also managed to descend. Everyone fumbled forward. On all sides were black rock faces. Had they entered the heart of Zhaklama mountain? The space inside this cave was too vast. There was no way to clearly see the surrounding terrain. In this situation, the high-intensity lighting equipment we had been reluctant to use from the beginning could now finally be put to use. This was a portable spotlight weighing 4 kilograms, using a spherical ultra-high-pressure xenon bulb and a nickel-platinum reflector. Its illumination range in an unobstructed space was 2.5 kilometers. This thing consumed a lot of power and couldn't be used for long, which was why we had been saving it until now. I assembled the spotlight. Fatty Quan took off the battery pack from his waist and put it into the battery compartment behind the light. Taptabang, nearsighted, curiously peered at the bulb. Shirley Yang pulled him away. "Be careful. The spotlight's light is very strong. Within 100 meters, it can blind a person. Don't look directly at it." With just a few steps, I finished assembling the high-intensity spotlight. I had everyone stand behind me, flick the switch, and a beam of light, as if solidified, shot out. As it swept across all 4 directions, everything around became incredibly clear. This was indeed the foot of Zhaklama mountain. Above our heads and all around were black rocks. The place where the funerary treasures were piled was a protruding rock face, on which, besides the burial objects, were countless large-eyed stone statues. Below was a large, circular cave. Completely consistent with what was depicted in the mural on the secret passage wall, this cave, approximately 1,000 meters in diameter, could absolutely not have been created by humans. Circling this unfathomably deep cave was a spiral artificial staircase. Continuing to shine the light downwards, we saw that these steps spiraled only a few times before ending. It seemed human effort had its limits. That was as deep as one could go. Shining the light further down, it was unfathomably bottomless. From below, chilling gusts of wind whirred upwards, creating a sense of crushing darkness that made one not dare to look down. If one kept looking down, it might lead to mental disorientation, making one unable to control oneself and jump down. Shirley Yang said, "This must be the sacred land of the Jingzhu kingdom." The name Ghost Cave people probably originated here. Ghost Cave. Ghost Cave. Where does it lead below? Seeing such a vast cave, I felt a shiver down my spine. The Ghost Cave might lead straight to hell, damn it. Just looking at it makes me dizzy. Professor Chen said, "Oh my, even you, a former soldier, still believe in these ghost and god theories? I think this large cave must be a natural formation. There's a saying, ghost acts divine work, and 2,000 years ago, the ancients surely regarded this as a miracle." Fatty Quan shone the spotlight around, then stopped and excitedly called us over to look. We saw the beam of light stop in the middle of the pit's opening. There, a long, narrow stone shaft hung suspended, protruding from the rock face, perfectly positioned right above the cave. Crucially, at the other end of the stone shaft was a very large log. This log, more than 2 meters in diameter, appeared to be the trunk of a great tree, directly felled without any processing. Its branches were still intact, and it even bore many green leaves. Over a dozen iron chains wrapped around the branches, tied to the horizontal stone shaft, securing the log. Even stranger, a clump of lush green plants and flowers grew on this log. The flower was as large as a barrel, with a constricted mouth and a swollen belly, its petals curled together, a uniform blue-green color from inside out. Around each side of it was a large blood-red leaf rooted to the log. Its branches and the iron chains intertwined, tightly embracing the tree trunk. I exclaimed in surprise, "This log! It's the divine Kunlun wood." I once heard my grandfather talk about coffin wood. The best was deep, sunk timber. Besides that, there was a divine item among the finest, rarely seen by people. The divine Kunlun wood mentioned in ancient texts. Legend has it that even a severed piece of divine Kunlun wood, separated from soil, water, and sunlight, would not wither. Though it couldn't grow further, it would always retain its original appearance. Placing a corpse inside a coffin made of divine Kunlun wood would prevent it from decaying for tens of thousands of years. Could it be that Queen Jingzhu's body is inside this divine Kunlun wood log? Shirley Yang's voice also trembled slightly. That's right. This is a coffin made of divine Kunlun wood. Ancient texts say that this tree is as ancient as Kunlun Mountain. In the past, Qin Shi Huang wanted to find divine Kunlun wood to make a coffin. Who would have thought this Queen Jingzhu was so formidable? It's likely no one in history possessed a more precious coffin than hers. Everyone found it hard to suppress their excitement and hurried closer to get a clear look. Professor Chen tried to stop them, seemingly wanting to say something very important, but in his haste he stepped on a rock and twisted his ankle. We had to turn back and help the professor up. His fall was not light at all, and he couldn't continue walking. The professor sat down and said, "Absolutely do not damage those things. Don't you see the strange flower on that coffin?" Fatty Quan exclaimed, Professor, you call that a flower? It looks so weird. I thought it was a giant taro root. And why are there plants and flowers growing on a coffin? Is that queen like a seed, sprouting immediately after being interred in her coffin? Professor Chen, rubbing his ankle, said, "Do you know what this flower is called?" It's the corpse scent flower. This is an extremely rare plant. It's likely the only one left in the world. Moreover, this plant is also incredibly dangerous. Corpse scent flower? Hearing this name, everyone, including Shirley Yang, was bewildered. None of us had ever heard of this strange flower before. Its name sounded far from ordinary, so we asked the professor to continue explaining. The professor said, "Years ago, when I researched ancient Western region civilization, I saw records of this flower in some surviving ancient murals and historical documents. This flower originally grew in the Haoiwi Kingdom and was once brought to the Central Plains via the Silk Road. However, due to an unsuitable environment, it completely disappeared. The corpse scent flower can survive in ancient tombs, and it's said to preserve corpses from decay and even make them emit a fragrance, making it extremely valuable. The mysterious aura in ancient Western regions civilization was very strong, with complex religions, myths, legends, and historical facts blended together, making it very difficult to distinguish them clearly. I originally thought this was just an ancient legend, not credible. Shirley looked again at the strange flower on the stone shaft and continued to ask the professor, if it's such a magical flower, why do you say it's very dangerous? Professor Chen said, what I said earlier was just one of its characteristics. Legend has it that the corpse scent flower contains an evil spirit. Once the flower fully matures, living people should not approach it. It's rare to find a coffin made of divine Kunlun wood, and that's probably why this demonic flower could grow here. I had experienced many strange things in my life, but I had never encountered such a bizarre coffin and demonic flower. I immediately said to Professor Chen, it's too strange. Inside Zhaklama mountain, where photosynthesis is impossible, plants can still grow. These mysteries and the queen's identity truly fit together. They are all anomalies that defy the laws of nature.